All right, we're probably committing an HR violation here. Logan Murdock on paternity leave. I think this is the first time I've ever asked anyone on paternity leave or maternity leave to say, "Hey, come on, we got to do something here." But this is a momentous day. The Oakland A's last home game tonight. You wrote about
it's happening right now. It's happening right
as
now,
we
actually.
speak.
As we speak.
Yeah, we're taping this on an afternoon. You wrote about this for The Ringer. This is the last of the three Oakland teams to leave the city over the last 5 years. Oakland now will have no professional sports after this weekend. So I had to ask, how are you feeling? What's going on?
I'm feeling just a range of emotions. I'm sad, first and foremost, that my team is leaving. This is probably the Raiders are probably the team that I have the most connection to, but the A's are a team that has always kind of been here. Whereas like the Raiders have always been has been defined by its like nomadic history, just going from Oakland to LA and the Vegas. Right. So you kind of expected the Raiders to leave at some point, but you never really expected the A's to leave. And it's weird. You referenced the piece that I did. I went to a game a few months ago, and there was emotions coming out that I didn't feel. I didn't even know were even there. Like the only other comparison to like a team, it's like if the Mets left New York or something like that, right? Like it's not the relationship with baseball in this region is pretty special, right? Because you have two iconic franchises, not even less than 10 miles from each other, in the Giants and the A's, and it's not like a Clippers-Lakers situation where one team is kind of irrelevant and another team is the cream of the crop. Like, no, you had two teams that you had to draw battle lines with, right? Like we're talking about the A's today, but I can't wear a Niners if I'm cold and it's freezing. I can't wear a Niners jacket. I can't do it. There's no way that's even happening because it's just in my DNA to hate that team. And now there's no other team. There's not going to be any other teams to root for other than San Francisco teams or teams in San Francisco for this region. And that's really tough. The East Bay had its own identity. Specifically, Oakland had its own identity through these sports teams. And it's really hard to recreate that. I know we have like the Oakland Ballers and we have like some semi-pro teams out here, but it's not going to be anything like the A's. It's not going to be anything like the Raiders. The Warriors too, even, right? Like I covered that team. They were in Oakland when they went on their dynastic run or most of it. And, I feel a lot of range of emotions. I feel sad that my team's gone. I feel anger because of John Fisher, just bar none, like the worst owner in sports right now. I mean, if you had to put a ranking for bottom tier owners, he's right there. And
he doesn't even. There's nobody else in the finals.
It's the
just
John Fisher tier.
Finals.
It's right there. It's just him playing against himself. But like, it's been really just gut wrenching. And he put out a letter like a couple of days ago talking about just like how sorry he was, and it was just a crock of shit, Bill. I mean, I don't know if you read it, but it was just basically like we tried to get a stadium built. He did everything in his power to screw over, not even just like baseball fans, but like team employees, right? And just like, there was a story that came out today in the San Francisco Chronicle about like he's stiffing benefits of the stadium workers at the Coliseum, right? Like he's just a terrible owner. And to see how this is played out with him is just gut wrenching because there's a lot of money in the Bay Area. I mean, you could just make one call to Joe Lacob and the A's are here. Right. And just to know that it came down to somebody who never really put money into the team, never really put money into the organization for years, just took a check from the league from the the TV money. He just took the TV money from the league, didn't reinvest into the team, didn't reinvest into the organization. The revenue share. He just took revenue share checks his whole time. And it's just really disappointing because there's a lot of money in the Bay Area. There's a lot of prideful fans on the East Bay that are not going to have a team, right? Like it's just, or any sort of team. And the fact that the only teams that are available represent San Francisco. And like, I love San Francisco. I got a lot of family in San Francisco. That's great. But that's their team. The Niners are their team. The Giants are there too.
Right. People aren't switching over. They're not
right,
like, okay, now I'll be a Giants fan. It's not happening.
Every time I go to my family's house in San Francisco over in Bayview, they're just talking shit about the Raiders. Like, just right. and I'm not going to have that anymore. Right. Like my kid ain't going to have that. Like that's really a thing right now. Like I know my kid is going to probably be a Giants fan and a Niners fan. There's nothing that I can do about it.
No, you can do stuff about that. I did stuff with my kids. They just knew Lakers and Yankees were out and they can go fucking live somewhere else. like literally, there's your room. If you want to keep it, you will not be a Laker fan. So my kids knew.
I sent a picture in the group chat of like my Raiders hat into like the family Murdock group chat the other day, and I just got torched. Like, why would you just put a loser organization onto your son at this stage, right? And it's tough, right? Because I can't say anything about it. But the A's are more gut wrenching because they're going to go to Vegas, and like Vegas doesn't even want them. It's just tough all around.
But he's following this Mark Davis blueprint of Mark Davis takes the Raiders, moves them to Vegas, gets the city to pay for like 40% of the stadium. Increased the franchise of the stadium, got in with football in a city that's growing as a sports city.
But the thing is, the key difference is Vegas wanted the Raiders. You can't convince me that Vegas even wants the A's or baseball in general at this point.
Who's going to baseball in Vegas? It's just,
and it's not even a dome stadium.
Yeah.
Right? Like, who's going to stay? Bill, I mean, I know you love baseball. Are you going to go watch A's Red Sox in the middle of July in Vegas?
No.
Why would you do that?
In a million years. I have some thoughts. So I grew up. The first Red Sox playoff series ever was over Oakland during that last stretch when Oakland had won the 3 World Series in a row, and then we beat them in like the ALCS. But so there was that Raleigh Fingers, Charlie Finley. There was that era. There was that era where they had all the awesome starters with Mike Norris and all those guys. Then there was the Rickey era, and that kind of bled in. That those two kind of bled together. Then they had the Dave Stewart, Canseco McGuire, where all of a sudden they seemed like the most important team in baseball again.
Rickey was also on that team too.
Yeah. And then they had the Moneyball era, where with Billy Beane in it, where it seemed like they were just outwitting everybody. Ends up being a movie. I think what's so shocking to me about it is, and this is not a new lesson, how much power a bad owner can have. Like I saw this in LA with Sterling. Where that not only is there a bad owner, not only is he ruining the culture, not only is he ruining fans, like wanting to even like the team, but you can't get rid of them. They're like the tenant that just figures out how to use every loophole against the landlord to just never leave. It's like you read those stories on Apple News about this person rented out their back house to somebody, and 7 years later, the person's still there not paying rent. That's what somebody like John Fisher becomes, and it's the loophole professional sports has never figured out. Once you get a team, you can't lose it basically unless you do something awful. So he didn't really do anything awful, but he was an awful owner. And how do you fix that? How do you stop it? You can't. And now you lose your team.
Yeah. And it's like, it's hard to even, that's a hard pill to swallow, right? Like, cause even I think about NBA, right? Like I know Sterling got his team, they made him sell his, but like David Stern also like made the Maloofs in a roundabout way sell their team, right? And like after years of them saying they wouldn't. And there has been like a willingness from Major League Baseball of letting this happen in a way that's just really, I don't want to say criminal because, that's a different connotation, but it's terrible, right? Like,
well, it almost seems like they were cool with maybe shoving baseball out of Oakland and pushing it toward another city. That's how I felt, not knowing anything.
Yeah, and then I know there's like connotations of where the stadium is and things like that, right? In the city of Oakland, and the pandemic has really, really ravaged the city in terms of just homelessness and also just stuff with local city government that is really going on right now. But I feel like that's been used as a scapegoat for a lot of teams, right? Like there's not like a team that for most of its existence, at least in the last 30 years, the last long as I've been, like sports teams have really just taken advantage of the fact that of Oakland's insecurity when it comes to wanting a professional team. The Raiders did it when they came back from Los Angeles and just taking all that public money that honestly just got paid back, right? After 30 years and with all that interest being accumulated. And, that's something that I was thinking about when I went to the last game was just, I love these teams, but, these teams have also taken advantage of citizens like me, right? Where they're getting these free passes, and this is modern day sports where they're getting these free passes to take public money, where public money can probably best served in a school district, which is Oakland is doesn't have a, or didn't have a great school district when I was growing up, right? And then it's taken away from city funds, taken away from stuff that it could that could really help the city in a lot of ways, right? You're not really investing from it; you're actually taking from it. And that's something that the Raiders did. That's something that the A's have done for the last few decades as well, right? Like on
Yeah.
one hand, it's tough to lose a team that you kind of seep your identity towards, but then on the other hand, it's like, well, you're not really investing in us. You're not investing in the citizens. You're not investing in the kids and the next generation in the way that you say you are. So it's a double-edged sword. And that's sports in the modern day, right, where you talk about private versus public funds, and what gets used and what gets taken away. And then the other side of that, which I dealt with was, like our school district was bad. And, I had to go a different route, but I was a fortunate one that could, my parents could scrape a little bit of money. Weren't well off by any means, scrape a little bit of money to go to private schools, but like I'm the lucky one. There was a lot of people that I grew up with didn't have that. And so it's a two-edged sword where you talk about on the one hand, yeah, man, it's cool to have a team where you can take Bart and go to the East Bay or go to East Oakland and watch Derek Jeter, go watch Kobe Bryant, go watch LeBron, or go watch Peyton Manning. One of my favorite times ever was getting to see Peyton Manning on Monday Night Football in like 10 minutes from my house. Like that was crazy. But on the one hand, you have that. But on the other hand, like a lot of people are not getting city funds and not getting what they're supposed to be getting as citizens.
Well, you're talking about sports extortion, where these people that own the teams who have money, who know all the loopholes, and they threaten, well, if you don't do this, we might go somewhere else. And now you're taking funds that could go to all these good places, and you're just helping pay for this arena that the people could probably pay for anyway. I think the fear of that, and the reason the cities over and over again will do that, is what's happening in Oakland right now. Oakland loses 3 teams, right? Plus COVID. And you think of where the city was 10 years ago, when everybody was talking about Oakland's on the upswing, all this good stuff's happening here. And then now all of a sudden there's no team. And whether we want to admit this or not, so much of a city's identity can come from sports and from the heroes people have and the stadiums and the joint experiences. And once you pull that out, that's the reason, like Oklahoma City, when there was even a little hint that they might lose the Thunder, like they've figured that shit out. The mayor's like, no, we got this.
Kansas City too with the Chiefs, right? Like we're gonna go to Kansas if you don't pay up for Arrowhead or pay up for stadium improvements, right? Like,
right, and it works because there's always people to point to, right? You can point to the Seattle, they lost the Supersonics, they still don't have basketball. You can point to Hartford. Hartford had the Whalers. That was a great rival to the Bruins when I was growing up. And that was the only team they had. Yeah, Buffalo Braves is another one where you lose that team, and now at least Buffalo had the Bills. Hartford has nobody, right? Yeah. They've never had a team, never been able to get one back. Seattle has other teams, but they've never been able to get basketball. And I guess with Oakland, now they're going to say, well, San Francisco's right there. You can go see. But I don't think that's
Bill,
how people are wired.
You've been to the Bay Area, like that bridge psychologically, it's 10 minutes or 15 minutes away, but it's a whole world away. Like it's not like as simple as we're going to get on the bridge. Like it from where I live in the East Bay, it'll probably take an hour to get to a San Francisco game. And I can see San Francisco from where I live, and it's not that. And also, like, you even talk about like just how much Oakland has been through over the last 10 years, right? Like, yeah, it was popping in Oakland, even during, like, when you came for the Warriors run, it was on the up and up. But, like, also on the other side of that, a lot of my homies were pushed out. A lot of people that look like me were pushed out due to gentrification, and like Oakland has been through a lot, and it's really hard to imagine what's next for this city. Forget a sports team. It's I want to see what Oakland does as a city going forward, because it's really been hit hard over the last few years. And and I don't know, like, one thing that teams bring is spotlights to other things that are happening into
it's a good point.
Into what's going on in the region. And, I wonder what Oakland is going to be without that spotlight of just good and bad, right? Like the spotlight of we need to do better, but also of, like, the good things that we are doing, because Oakland has a stigma. I think it's the greatest place on earth. I love being from here. I love, living near here and love being around in Oakland. And it is hard to, when you hear an out of towner, say like, "Oh man, you from Oakland? Oh man, it's this, it's that," and then then there's like, what on one hand is like, what can you say? But also like, it's a beautiful town. It's a beautiful place that has continued to be on the short end of the stick based on all the things that we're talking about. And I don't want it to have that stigma. That's going to be the hard part.
Well, you know what's interesting about that? You made me think of how when I would go to Oakland, I would see the stadiums, right?
Yeah.
And even like during the Warriors run from
because right off
the
the airport, you get on the freeway, it's right there. You can see the stadium.
And it's like, man, that baseball stadium's in rough shape. Like sometimes you can see the sports buildings of cities and say, what? What's going on there? Why don't they have a new stadium? But it was almost like they were intentionally making the baseball stadium worse and worse, that was the one part I didn't understand with Fisher. What was the point of making the baseball stadium like almost a health hazard? Like it was probably the most unsafe baseball stadium or football stadium or any stadium that anybody in the country had in the last 25 years. And I didn't understand that game plan at all.
It just felt like some weird sabotage, right? Because on the other hand, right, like if you were to pinpoint the perfect place to put a stadium in Northern California, that site is the perfect one. If you want to talk about public transportation, getting right there for BART, it's right next to the airport. But that goes to that the reason why teams didn't want to be there, and I'm including the Warriors and including the Raiders in this place, because it's not. I'm trying to say the right way to say this, but it's a lot of black and brown people. It's a lot of low income people. It's not a place where people think that they can sell against advertising or sell a stadium. Like, hey, we could put it in middle of East Oakland. A lot of people with money are scared of that reality. That's why they kept doing the Howard Terminal when there was a local residents were like, yo, you already have a stadium and a great stadium site. Why don't you just use that? They were trying to go
and build around it. That was the big
build
thing,
around
right?
it.
Because you went there and it was just basically the stadiums, and that was it. And it was traffic in and out.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, these teams don't want to invest in these parts of the town. Instead, they want to invest in other places that really don't make as much sense. Because if you were going to go to Howard Terminal, then you're messing with the ports and you're messing with a lot of other people that are black and brown, right? Like, you're messing with a lot of other things when you could do it right here. And that's what I'm talking about, the double-edged sword, because you're like, man, I want my team here, but also they're not investing in us. And that's something that, like, that's always been on the front of the minds of East Bay people and Oakland citizens in general.
The flip side of that has been what's happened in Inglewood, where they put, SoFi, Bomber just built this awesome Clippers arena, and you're seeing money trickle in there. Now, part of that is because it's the opportunity. That was one of the only places to develop real estate, but it's also people trying to invest in that part of extended LA and trying to figure out, could
just say one thing about the Inglewood thing, man. I wish that LA's public transportation was like even a little bit better, because it is hard as hell to get to Forum and SoFi.
It's definitely not going to be easier too. We'll see how it goes with the Clipper games, but my thinking with that is maybe 10 years from now it'll be better. It's weird to me though, because I always thought the thing that always struck me going to Warriors games was how convenient it was. Off of the airports, and it just was a lot easier than maybe some of these other cities, and why
it's
the right person didn't
it's really
grasp
hard
it.
to get to Chase Center. Like, if you go at a certain time, it's pretty hard. Like, and whereas going to Oracle, it was like, I don't know, you stay at that one hotel downtown, or if you stayed in San Francisco, you just take, it's just an easier experience just to get around.
Well, do you think what if the Warriors lost in that new arena? In your opinion, because I know you've been there a bunch, and everybody loved going to the Oakland games, although the 2000 version of that was so much better, but still there was definitely an atmosphere that, now it just feels very fancy.
It's very sanitized. I'm really glad I'm not coming back to the top of the year, because I ain't trying to hear nobody from the Warriors get mad at me when I say this, but it's the truth. It's Chase Center is just a very plastic version of a modern day stadium. Like, there was a little bit of soul in that finals run, but like, you started to see the shift. I would say, like, even back in the Oracle days from 18 and 19, you started to see the shift, and just there would be complaints from the Warriors like, yo, why isn't it as loud as it used to be? Why are people not like,
I wonder why.
Why aren't they into the game? Right. And it's even more so now, especially now that they have those lower level suites. I've never seen lower level suites. I didn't even know what those were until I went to Chase Center. They have those lower level suites where, and you see it on TV when you come back from halftime and there's nobody in the lower bowl, right? Because everybody's in the clubs. They're in the JP Morgan Club. They're in the Golden Gate Club. And it's a lot more techy now, right? Like it's a big tech ethos. They're catering now to the Silicon Valley, the South Bay, as opposed to, what made Oracle magical. And I get it, right? Like the Warriors want to make as much money as possible. This is one of the biggest windfalls in American history in the tech business, right? You want to feed off of that. But as a consequence, like it can be dead. If you go to a Tuesday game in January, it can be pretty dead at Chase Center.
Just wait till Oracle. Wait till 5 years from now, and it's like, and here he is, Brandon Podziemski.
Oh man,
there's no Steph Curry anymore because he's in Charlotte playing with his dad.
It's going to be louder at the Valkyries games than it is at the Warriors games in about 3.5 years.
I was going to ask you about that.
I'm excited.
Wouldn't the big win would have been to put that team in the old Oracle?
Yeah, but
and tried to juice it back up. I know why they couldn't, because they own the team and they're trying to get dates in there and the whole thing. But
I like the fact that they were going to put it at Chase Center because those ladies deserve first class amenities.
No, I get it. I'm just saying
I've been to Oracle.
That could have been a good link though to the old era.
They're actually putting the practice facility. They redid the whole practice facility at the Oakland Marriott. So that's where the ladies are going to be practicing, and they have like a state of the art thing. So they're doing right by Oakland. Like the Warriors and the Valkyries are doing right by Oakland.
That team's going to crush. What'd they get? It was a $50 million expansion fee. They've already probably tripled that thanks to the Caitlin era.
And Lacob's trying to get Sabrina. Stop playing. You already know that's probably the first or second meeting to get Sabrina in like 3 years.
Well, what's weird is I think with the way the salary cap works there, it's not like you can bowl over another team. You can just...
Well, there's another TV deal coming very soon for the W, so it's gonna just to look. And also, like, don't underestimate Lacob. He really wants to make a splash with this, obviously, right? Like he doesn't want to get into W to be a mediocre franchise.
This could be his new 1,000 points of late.
Listen, the Warriors are going to, in about 5 years, the Warriors are probably going to suck, right? So, I mean, if you have some sort of like championship ethos or something that Lacob can like hang his hat on. Another thing that's interesting, and this is something that you're going to enjoy because I know you love owner beef. And I'm not saying this is technically owner beef, but it is like owner like side eye. Think about the dynamic between Mark Davis and Joe Lacob for the Aces versus the Valkyries, right? Joe Lacob has seen Mark Davis's work, right?
Yeah.
Just being in the Bay Area this whole time. You can't tell me that he's not looking at like Mark Davis and the Aces like, I want to kick their ass, like just off of GP, right? Just there's going to be that. There's going to be the Joe Lacob with Joe Tsai out in with the Liberty. There's going to be some owner beef. Just wait till this next generation of W basketball. It's just as we get more money and more NBA owners investing, just keep a lookout for that owner beef.